Okay, it's Tuesday, July 25th. This is an end of the day SPY recap, and today we end up with a 2-up green bar that reached all initial targets. So in other words, you could see here, we started above the midpoint of the prior day, green day. We moved up from the open and we reached not only this first target here, but the second target, which is the weekly high. So our weekly chart, it's green bar from last week with a bit of a selling tail, so we didn't know really what would happen this week. We allowed a pre-market range and opening price action to guide us, and so far that's been up both days. And today, what we did was we had more continuation. And actually, I can go over it now because they're going a little crazy on TV, saying this is the 12th day in a row the Dow is up. So on the daily chart, I guess they're counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. The SPY has been kind of pausing a couple of days in here, but generally the Dow Jones has been up 12 days in a row. Well, if you look at the weekly chart, even more impressive, and I'm not going to count them, but essentially ever since this low, we really almost haven't had a daily low at all. I mean, a weekly low. I mean, we've come up. This is an outside, this is two inside. So we, from all the way back through March, we've been going up now without a weekly red bar. I mean, a red bar, but not a weekly red bar new low. So that's bound to happen. I just went back just to look at a few. Here are some big trends to the upside, and even though they're moving up, pretty strong, there's always a couple of red bars that end up having either 1 or 2 down weeks, but then the trend continues. So anyway, at any moment here, we could be getting a red a failure bar that gets at least a new red weekly low. And that, if let's say we kind of fail up here now and get kind of shooter bar and then go down next week, that would be one weekly low. And that can last for 5 days, and maybe we go a little bit into the next day. So we can have like 6-7 days of a pretty deep pullback once it occurs and still be well within this uptrend. But anyway, that's just showing there's always exhaustion risk on this chart, and yet our big picture target is still this upper purple line here, which I drew. This is on the monthly chart. I've talked about how we're kind of aiming for these highs up here on the quarterly and monthly chart. So that's why, we're getting continuation. And this was a strong monthly breakout, so it's not surprising in July we're continuing up there. I just didn't know if we're going to get there in a relatively straight line or if there's going to have to be pauses along the way, but I still expect that target to be reached. Anyway, getting back to today, so we reached this target. So it may be, now we have reference points. So what's interesting here is now you have Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday to go. So we have 3 more days of the week for this weekly bar to form and close. So now all of a sudden, we kind of know we have the open of the week here. As long as that stays, we're above there, we stay green, we're comfortable with that. We now have the midpoint of this bar, so we won't even consider, any kind of failure developing until we go above the, below that midpoint of this bar, and then get below, and then we have to, at that point, have a 2 down and get below the open, and all of a sudden, that could end up being the shooter week, and if that ends the case, then we would expect, we see as the week really unfolds, what's unfolding here to start anticipating what the next week's going to be. We're a little too early to do that now, so I could still see continuation up without any problem because we have this target up here, and yet at any point, just given that weekly analysis, we got to get a red, new 2 down red bar at some point coming up. So, but it's not like I'm expecting that. It's just that once it starts going on, we could have been saying that over here too, and we went up for then 4 more, weeks in a row. So it's not like I'm expecting it, but it's going to happen. And when it does, we'll get the signals. That's what I'm trying to say in terms of that's how we look at opening price action relative to the pre-market range. And then today, just reviewing it, I bought SPY calls right here on the 15-minute bar to the upside, first bar. We kind of had this pre-market range. This low of the range was right at the midpoint of yesterday. So if we started below that, that could have been the potential failure on the daily chart to head down and then take out all these lows and then get the weak red. But instead, price action decided to take us up, went up. This big pause in here, you kind of expected this to be taken out. It really wasn't done on this bar, but, you never knew for sure what was going to happen in here. I discussed how we're in a tricky scenario where we can fail or as long as we hold the midpoint of this bar, we're heading higher. And as it turns out, all this pausing just held the midpoint of that bar. We eventually broke out above it and then went up nicely for the rest of the day. So it was kind of like a trade where it went up, if you held on, then you had this next push up, and there were all kinds of ways to profit, on a nice move higher towards these two targets. So let's just see what unfolds. Our trend's still up. You can see the selling is coming in, with some selling tails, but that doesn't mean anything. It all depends on where price opens relative to the midpoint of these bars, at least the way I look at it in the pre-market range, whether we're going to continue up or down, even though people are trying to, you can see they're selling, as it goes up, but the price really doesn't follow through all that much to the downside. All these red bars are just kind of pause bars along the way. So we will see what happens tomorrow. And we still have the main target. We're getting closer and closer. Where is it? It's all the way up here, like 4620, area. So there's a long way to go, but I don't know if it's going to do it day after day after day. But that's still, until we get some kind of monthly reversal, even a weekly reversal wouldn't stop me from being, we still have the whole quarter to get up there. So I said that's July, August, September. We still have 3 months to make it up there, so we can get a weekly pullback along the way. But anyway, let's see what happens. Today was a good, decent day to the upside. The SPY, you can see right from the start, went up all day, one pause, and then kind of a second wave up to the, to those targets that were sitting over here. So let's see how it goes tomorrow.